For today's webinar, I've already set the stage, giving you a short introduction about our organization. Now, let me get started with the webinar. For today's webinar, we have a very, very distinguished panel. The first on the panel today is Dr. Tarannum Siddiqui. जितना भी मैं इनके लिए बोलूं उतना कम है. She is an expert on gender and development. Apart from being an academician, she is a development practitioner too. She has been in Sarojini Naidu Women's Studies Center, which is at Jamia Islamia University. Apart from teaching there, she has been involved in a lot of those activities which help the women and girls build their capacities and get on to the path of empowerment. Thank you, Dr. Tarannum, to be with us. Second on the panel today with us is Ashish Laroia. Ashish is a practicing lawyer at Delhi High Court. Apart from practicing law and taking up cases, he is a lawyer with a golden heart, as I can say, because he's involved in a lot of pro bono activities, a lot of those activities which help the community, especially the underprivileged, to empower and to be with the mainstream. He takes up a lot of cases on pro bono basis. And yesterday I was talking to him and we were wondering how we can associate and work in the community together. Thank you, Ashish, to be with us today in the panel. Third with us is Garima Malik. She is a young lawyer. She passed out from MET School of Law, and she is an ardent researcher. She has written a lot of research papers, and believe me, she is such an active lawyer that whenever we are stuck in some legal case in the sense for others, she is always there with us, with her advice, with her guidance, and with her inputs on the case. She has been dealing with a lot of cases on criminal offenses, matrimonial, and all such cases. Sorry, I have very little knowledge on law, so I am not a competent person to talk more about the legal experts. So thank you for being with us today. Let's begin today's discussion. The name of our session is very, very, I have a lot of papers with me today. Marital rape, is it a false alarm? Is it a false alarm is what we are going to discuss. There are various perspectives on this issue. And these perspectives vary from one to the other. The major salient feature of our series of discussion is that we'll be having these discussions in a multi-stakeholder framework, where we will have experts from different stakeholding communities, such as police, legislation, judiciary, sociologists, economists, etc. For today's discussion, we have a panel of sociologists and legal experts. Let's begin today's topic with the sociological perspective. We all know that gender and violence is nothing new. It has been in the society since what times? Times immemorial is, I think, बहुत बड़ी बात हो जाएगी बोलना. But it has existing and it's a fact, it's a reality. It exists in various forms. We all understand the implications of violence on women. The violence which takes place is in the domains of physical, psychological, emotional, economic, and whatnot. And many times we ignore the forms of violence against women And we just want to talk about it in a straight line, which should not be there. This is one subject which is circular in nature. All the stakeholders, whatever are the reasons, whatever are the factors responsible, they are all circular. There is nothing linear which come in a line. Let me begin with Dr. Tarannum. Dr. Tarannum, when we
Yes.
talk about the subject of marital rape or gender-based violence, what do you think? How serious is this subject? Number one, and secondly, how is it that we look at it from a sociological perspective? And when we say whether it's a fact or it's a myth, especially in the context of marital rape, then what do you think is the sociological uh, connotation of this? Over to
Uh,
Dr.
thank you, Malaji, and good afternoon, all present here. जो लोग हैं उनको मैं अपनी तरफ से आदाब कहती हूँ. And thank you all organizer, all of you invite me, especially for this topic, marital rape, is it false alarm? We are talking about sociology aspect and legal aspect. Firstly, I will discuss on sociology aspects. Everybody knows India is one of only 38 countries where this inmate assault is a perfectly legal crime. It has increasingly has been challenged across the world, and over the year, more than 100 countries have outlawed marital rape. Marital rape is not only criminalized in India, but has been done in many developed and developing countries. Just as it is not criminalized, there are lots of suffering and trauma faced by the women from the patriarchal society like us. Not only Indian society, all the South Asian society. In India, women have been considered the most vulnerable group than men since ages have been experienced all kind of exploitation and dominance. The discrimination that happens to a person being a female is quite evident in Indian society, as they are subjugate to many circumstances like minimum education, less and minimum paid job, low anticipations and other gender, low status, and very less debate. Main important point is very less debate and education as compared to other gender group. They have always been dominated by giving them uneven allocation of resources, rewards, privileges, and power, which lead to sex role differences. The situation of Indian women is very shocking. Even the culture background of Indian society has helped in this exhaust condition of women, and thus political, social, and economic condition have been accountable for such dominations. They have been victims of the conditions that have been created because of gender biasness, which continues with them from support to grave. There have been current effort that be activists, lawyers, reformers, gender specialists, and journalists, and other people to claim the situation of women, but still the situation remains as it is. Some form of marital rape, like sexual pressure by non-physical. It's a social pressure where the wife is forced for a sexual intercourse and is reminded about her duty as wife. Forced sex. When a woman is not willing to have intercourse, and us of physical force is involved. Battering, rape, use aggression and force against the wife of sexual intercourse. Force only rape does not necessarily better the wife, but uses force against unwilling wife. Obsessive rape involves sexual aggressive pleasure by the husband. The reason why the issue of marital rape has not been discussed till date is due to lack of awareness about women empowerment and the miserable literacy rate, especially in the our country, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and all the South Asian countries, especially. The process of globalization has applied some unobserved forces that have changed both family and marriage. It is influencing the family structure and marriage norms in India to a great level. Thus, women are finding freedom to some work, and hence modernity has largely promoted women's empowerment through many tools. Though women have entire public dominance, still they are targeted with violence and discrimination, and the family domination, the violence have still been secret as is still in private domain. It is the patriarchal norms that are undergoing. With the purpose of understanding the roots of women subjected to violence, it has been found that the patriarchal social order has been responsible for such discrimination and violence against women. It should be noted that if there has been to be a stop on such discrimination, then the attitude of patriarchal system should be changed. The society create twofold attitude against rape and rape victims. At the stage where India has codified law and lots of public pro announcements, rape is condemned as a serious crime, whereas it the stage of patriarchal achievement, it is treated as nothing more severe than minor conflict in the usual clash of sex. The social attitude towards rape as well as the rape victim are completely opposite. Although causing rape, the society convicted the rape victim too. The rape victim woman face not only personal sense of shame but also considered down with guilt for no fault of hers because of this consent point and criticism that the society heaps on her. And these social attitudes have resulted in a situation whereby women are told from a childhood that rape is the worst thing that can happen to a woman. For women, awareness of the possibility of rape determines their lives in the very basic way. The same is situation with the women is in a four walls that we can term as marital rape. Some impact for the marital rape for women. Marital rape is not offense in India, and criminal justice system has been
Please
hello.
switch off your, yeah, please switch off your, there's some sound coming.
Okay.
Yeah.
Unsuccessful to system has been unsuccessful to deliver justice to married women who are suffer to sexual unkindness. Marital rape is white paper, but it is least reported crime. Women are unable to report it, these type of rapes for the reason that the law does not distinguish this as an offense. The perfect frequency of marital rape in India as the majority country on a global is still limited. But a variety of research conduct in India show as it is the widespread. For example, in one research, India exposed that 1 in 5 men have forced their wives to have sex. More than 2/3 of Indian married women between 15 and 49 years claim to have been beaten or forced into sex by their husband. In other study, it is in other study it was found that 1 out of 7 married women in India has been raped by her husband at least once. Bihar was found to be the most violent, with the abuse rate against married women being as high as 59%. Strongly 63% of these incidents were reported from urban families, there than the state's most backward villages. It was followed by Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Manipur, Uttar Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, and West Bengal. Madhya Pradesh, like 45.8%, Rajasthan 46.3%, Manipur 43.9%, and Uttar Pradesh 42.4%. And like this, Tamil Nadu 41.9%, West Bengal is 40.3%. Marital rape give rises a lots of difficulties, infertility, abortion, unnecessary repeated pregnancy. The violence is marital rape, often leading to vaginal infection, stillbirths, miscarriages, and something sexual transmitted disease. It gives not only all these trauma, but they are subjected to shock, emotional anxiety, sleeplessness, discomfort, trauma, and even suicidal thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Law and judicial pronouncement should be articulated about the fact is a rape, whether it's happened within the bedroom or the public place. The notion of blanket consent in marriage is illogical and barren. A connection involving a man and woman is not certificate to rape. In addition, the truth is that the rape and happens within the four walls of house does not require to be verified that it is a less known crime. Thus, marital rape is not being criminalized for the reason that it happens within the privacy of home. The wall cannot be used barrier for women getting justice and equality. Marital privacy is not an unconditional right. This has been supported by many courts of the world. The court is USA has also declared that the state must balance its interest in protecting marital privacy against women's interest in protecting body honor. The United Kingdom law in UK, the legal position is prescribed under the Sexual Offence Act 2009. And last, I say something. Therefore, it is better to make the home a safer place to live in with loss of love and compensation from both the mother and the child. The dignity of women should be maintained within the home. If this happens, then gradually the conditions of women will also be improved. It is very much important to look marriage as an equal partnership and give high priority to be
Yeah.
need and willingness of
Yeah,
both
Dr.
the
Tarannum,
parents.
very nice.
Yes.
You have said it so well. So we will discuss it more. We'll come back to you when we are talking about the sociology of marriage and family. So
And
let's,
lastly, I say
yeah,
something. Socialization is most important part in our society, and other thing is that type of seminar and discussion is more important. But very important,
absolutely.
the young people is involved in this type of talks, and always organize this type of talks in regional languages and our
Yes,
languages. Thank you.
yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Tarannum.
Thank
So
you.
coming from the position that marital rape is a sociological concept because it is not only a sociological, it is a human rights concern.
Rights Council.
So let me come to Ashish now. Ashish, you are a practicing lawyer. When you
Please,
hear
ma'am.
the sociology of marital rape, and you have been
Yes.
dealing with the cases where the matrimonial disputes come or domestic violence cases come, and maybe there are complaints where the woman does talk about forced sex, or you know, without consent, or some kind of physical coercion to get into sex
Please,
with her spouse.
please.
What is the challenge before you as a lawyer to take the case in the court before the judiciary? And how do you find evidences, investigate, talk, discuss, and take the client into confidence when you come across a complaint like this? How do you look at it, in other words, in the legal realm of marital rape?
As you have stated, how do we gather this information? So, first of all, that I would like to address to the people over here is that whosoever comes with these kinds of complaint, first of all, they're hesitant. The one who's hesitant about speaking all these things has already been explained by Dr. Siddiqui pretty well.
Yeah,
That all these things happen within the four walls of a house or a matrimonial home. Therefore, the person who comes to us along with the complaints of marital rape do have a social pressure. They think in a way that they have a sexual obligation towards their husband so that he can force her to have a sexual intimacy. Then we also find people who are not that literate, who are illiterate. And if we tell them that this is not right, this is something wrong which has been done to you, you have a fundamental right of protecting your body toward these kinds of acts. So they simply say, nahi sahab, ये तो हमारे पति हैं, वो नहीं करेंगे तो कौन करेगा? So this is what the tendency they have. This is what they've been taught till date. And then the fourth problem that I think that people are facing right now is the lengthy procedures for the same. Like you said, how do you collect evidence? Marriage initially, marriage initially gives right to a husband and wife to lawfully consummate their marriage,
yeah,
which is not denied at all. But marriage is a stable relationship in which a man and a woman are socially permitted to have children, implying the right to sexual relationship and consummating their marriage as well. But being a part of that wedlock does not permit the man to forcibly have a sexual relationship with his wife, because there can be times when she's not mentally fit, physically fit. So that has to be taken care of, because she also has a right to a good life in our country. That is a very basic right which is being given to her the day she is born. The right to have sexual intercourse must be consensual, and therefore not an obligation for a wife to have it with her husband against her own consent and will. The wife should have the liberty to refuse to have sex and cannot be compelled by her husband to do it every time. Even today, the law system in India does not recognize marital rape as a crime, and we have to have serious concerns regarding this. Reason being, on 6th of August 2021, the Honorable Kerala High Court upholds marital rape as a good ground to claim divorce. But again, we have to think about it only to take divorce, not going beyond that. So, what I think that these kind of cases should be reported, and you'll be surprised to know that less than 1% of the cases pertaining to the sexual violence in our country are reported. So there the problem lies, that people are not coming out with these kind of cases. They're not reporting these kind of cases. That too because of the social pressure. That too because of that they think that it's a sexual obligation, because of the illiteracy, because of the lengthy procedures that I've told at the outset. So how can the second question that you have asked me is that can we bring them to the legal framework? Is there a possibility? How do we address them? So that marital rape is the biggest form of sexual violence against a woman, which I think is less reported, analyzed, or less studied till date. This is probably the biggest form of sexual violence against a woman in the matrimonial home itself, in the confines of the home, it is confined to the four walls. It is like Dr. Tarannum said, it is unrecorded. Somehow it is unreported. There is no FIR. If one counts the total number of married men and married women, how many times this rape takes place within an institution of marriage itself? It would be surprising for all of us. Very often, there are cases of women marital rape. Nobody will help them, not even their parents. If they go to the society, if they go to the people who are actually given authority to deal with such kind of cases and to whom this cases are being reported, they'll certainly laugh at that lady. You're coming to us, ma'am, with this kind of cases. He's your husband. He has the liberty to have a sexual intercourse with you, man. It's not a crime because there is no legislation for the same. Marital rape in itself is a type of a domestic violence, according to me. It is an act of forceful and violent control, and thus sometimes includes physical abuse, emotional abuse, mental abuse, and so on. Then now, if we talk about the legal framework has to be justified. If we need to make a law upon this, then there should be a justification which is backing this law. Then if we talk a little further about it, what kind of abuses do a woman go? What effect does it has upon the body of a woman and the soul of a woman? Marital rape has more severe and long-lasting consequences for women because of the simple fact that the rapist is none other than the husband of a woman with whom she's dreaming to spend her whole life, with whom she's expected to spend whole of her life and a lifetime of happiness. So I rather define it into the two categories, that what effects does it has upon the woman. The first effect that I reasonably foresee is the physical effect. The physical effects of a marital rape include injuries to the private parts and the private organs of a woman. There might be bruises, torn muscles, fatigue, fractures, etc. And if she denies having that sexual intercourse or sexual relationship with her husband, in return, like Dr. Tarannum said, he might become violent, he might beat her badly. So it can also result in more physical severity to the body of a woman. The women who are subjected to physical violence as well as rape suffer from other complications like blackened eyes, broken bones, wound infected in the inner part of their bodies by any sort. There can be a use of a weapon, since the man who's trying to rape her might use a weapon which is actually available at the matrimonial home or at the house, like a knife, which is available at everybody's house right now. So these are the simple things that do come to my mind. Women also go through some problems due to marital rape, like miscarriages, infections, infertility, and they do have a chance of getting diseases like HIV and STDs, like it has already been discussed by Dr. Tarannum at length. So the second effect that I feel the women go through is a psychological effect. A psychological destruction is the biggest destruction for a human being that I personally think a person can ever suffer from. Because if you're financially suffering, you can actually overcome that. If you're physically suffering, you might overcome that. But if you're psychologically suffering, so that suffering would go a long way to you in your life. And a woman, if she's a mother, has to take care of her children as well. So the psychological effect that she's going through would some way or the other would affect the upbringing of her children as well, and the persons available at the house. The trauma a woman goes through when her own husband repeatedly rapes her cannot be explained in words. Actually, what I think is because she is giving her body, soul, and mind to that person for the whole of her life. The psychological effects are far worse than the physical effects. Some of the short-term psychological effects are shock, fear, stress. In some cases, we shouldn't address it, but people have had suicidal tendencies though. because they are subjected to such a psychological trauma that they couldn't tell it to anybody, because what they think that it is not largely accepted by our society. So they do have a societal pressure that they think that if we would tell this to somebody, people might laugh at us, or people would like to console her that this is common, this happens. They won't support her that this is wrong, you should come up with this. And this is a gross violation of Article 21 of the Indian Constitution, who protects the life and personal liberty of a person. Because the article in itself includes the right to live life and personal liberty and dignity. But if a female is forcefully asked to have sexual intercourse with her husband, then the validity of her right to exercise her personal liberty, as according to me, is questioned at the outset. And her dignity is also affected at the same point of time. On one hand, we are having a law to protect the woman from being outraging her modesty. And on the other hand, her modesty, her personal wishes are being outraged by her husband itself in the matrimonial home, in the four walls. So this is not actually justified. And as according to me, there should be a legal framework in respect of the same. Now, if we, please, ma'am, if you have any, please, ma'am, if you have any question, or the audience has any question to ask for the points that I've explained so far, so I can answer them as well, or I'll go further.
Yeah. So Ashish, we'll come back to you. We'll take the questions from the participants at the end of the discussion, because we are just taking our perspectives and we are sharing our perspective. Now, coming from the sociological background, you very rightly and very nicely summed up the challenges before a lawyer as to how to prove that the marital rape has occurred, but taking it before the judiciary and dealing with the case has its own challenges. And you have summed them up very well. Now, coming to Garima, she is a young practicing lawyer and she has been dealing with cases which are matrimonial and domestic violence. Garima, how do you look at the whole process of socialization, as Dr. Tarannum, talked about, that girls are conditioned to accept, accommodate, and adjust. And maybe when they grow up, there is a connotation of that subjugation on the marital relations of that woman also with her husband. Now, has it changed in any way from our generation to your generation? How do you think that young girls look at this whole process of socialization and subjugation, as we call it, in the contemporary times?
According to me, in the concept of marital rape, lack of consent is the most essential element, and the entire concept revolves around it. Such a consent which is given by the wife for the sexual act can either be expressed, can be implied. Basically, it should be a clear indication whether she wants to be indulged in such an act or not. It has to be it has to be free from fear of harm. It has to be free from misconceptions and everything. And the woman should understand the nature and the consequences of the act to which she is giving the consent. Here I would like to relate it to section 375 of IPC, which also talks about consent, that any unequivocal voluntary agreement where the woman by words, gestures, or any other thing, verbal or non-verbal, communicates her willingness to indulge in such an act can be termed as a consent. There are cases in which a wife is not mentally fit to give her consent. She is mentally unsound. So in such a case, even if she is giving consent, even if she is having a sexual relationship with her husband, that would not be out of her own free will. And one more thing which I would like to add here is, ma'am, there's a difference between not resisting an act and consenting to it. So even if a woman is not resisting, doesn't mean that she is giving the consent. Even if there is non-resistance, then also it can be a chance that she is against it. And this also is being covered under IPC under 375. To sum it up, I think free, valid consent is the one in which women are they are capable of understanding the nature and the consequences of the act. Now, talking about the youth, I think the youth today is very much aware about these issues, about sexual violence in marriages. And women particularly, they have become more conscious, they have become more aware about their rights, and they are raising a voice against this. Men, on the other hand, they are also moving from a patriarchal setup to a more balanced society where they think women also have equal rights and they also have a say, and they are equally supporting women. There are NGOs also, there are various support groups also who are coming forward to take the cause, and they're putting pressure on the government so that there are laws on this. But what we need is we need to educate that strata of the society which still believes in the patriarchal setup, which still believes that that woman is basically an object and she can be used as an object to fulfill the desires of her husband. And there are people who believe that marriage gives them the license to have sex. So that is the viewpoint we need to change. So as Ashish sir also pointed out earlier, and Tarannum ma'am said, that when a victim of marital rape, she is not accepted in the society. Her parents do not accept her friends do not accept her. The law is not in favor of we do not have a proper law dealing with the same. So the trauma which she is suffering from is very difficult to be recovered. Now, here, I think what is needed is we need gender sensitization to deal with the issue. This has to start from the basic level. The parents, while raising their child, they have to inculcate in them the values of gender equality and everything, and they are not discriminating between their son and daughter. And they make the child learn, the son learn that, look, we have to treat other women with respect. So I think it all starts from there. Apart from all these things, apart from the patriarchal setup and everything, I think another most important reason why women are facing all these issues is lack of education and economic independence. Women at a very young age, like the child marriages are very prevalent in India. At a very young age, they are forced to marry people. They lack education. They are not economically independent, and thus they are dependent on their husbands, on their in-laws for everything. So therefore, they cannot come forward. They lack confidence to come forward and raise their voice against marital rape. And it is a saying that my rapist doesn't even know that he raped me because the system told him that he did not. So this mindset of the people, that is what we need to change. So until this changes, I don't think we will be able to bring about development or everything for the cause. Like, we can actually work for the upliftment of women.
Very, very good, Garima. I come back to you, Dr. Tarannum. Garima has very clearly articulated on the need for gender equitable marriages, gender equitable relationship between men and women. You talked about subjugation and the kind of socialization where women are subjugated to men, right? And maybe because of that, there is coercion and there is sexual violence. Dr. Tarannum, how do you look at this whole process of change that needs to come in our process of socialization? And do you think that marital rape is a threat to the conventional institutions of family and marriage? After all, what you said during your input was that marriage has to be equal relationship between men and women, ideologically, but it may not be so. Remember that sociologist who said that family is an institution of cooperative conflict, right? So when family may also have a conflict and the marriage may also come from that position, how do you think the existence of marital rape can be justified?
Dr. Mala, first thing is socialization. I think first the term consent in family, हमें ये सिखाना चाहिए consent should be defined to draw a line between consent and compulsion. मतलब आप किसी को consent कर रहे हैं या किसी पे dominant होके उससे consent करा रहे हैं. तो जब हम, जैसे कि गरिमा ने कहा कि सेंसिटाइज करना चाहिए, तो मेरा मानना ये है कि चाहे वो रेप हो, चाहे मैरिटल रेप हो, कोई भी इस तरह का रेप हो या कोई भी जेंडर मतलब वायलेंस हो, किसी तरीके का भी वायलेंस हो, not only women, all other genders. क्योंकि हम जब women की बात करते हैं अदर जेंडर को भूल जाते हैं। बट यहाँ पे हम क्योंकि मैरिटल रेप की बात कर रहे हैं तो विमेन का ही बात करेंगे, बट क्योंकि अब हमारे यहाँ अदर जेंडर के साथ भी मैरिज की बात हो रही है, हो गई है, लॉ आ गया है सारी, तो हमें वो भी चीजों को ध्यान में रख के बात करना चाहिए। तो फर्स्ट थिंग जो मैंने कहा, सोशलाइजेशन, हमें सोशल एक तो जो इस तरह के टॉक्स हैं, सेंसिटाइज टॉक हैं, वो हमें ग्रॉस रूट लेवल पे, जैसे गरिमा ने कहा यंग पीपल अवेयर है, आई नो कि यंग पीपल बहुत अवेयर है इन दिस इश्यूज पे, बट बहुत बारीकी से जो चीजें होती हैं उनको समझ नहीं पाते हैं। और वो यंग पीपल की हम बात नहीं करते हैं जो कॉलेजेस में नहीं जा रहे हैं, जो सिर्फ दिन रात की रोटी कमा रहे हैं और उनको किसी तरह की लिटरेसी के प्रोग्राम में इन्वॉल्व नहीं किया जा रहा है। उनको उनकी ही लैंग्वेज में, सिंपल लैंग्वेज में उनको सेंसिटाइज किया जाएगा, क्योंकि वो उनकी अपब्रिंगिंग ऐसी होती है कि वो सोचते हैं कि आई एम ए मैन और आई एम ए डोमिनेटेड अदर जेंडर। मैं आपको एक केस यहाँ पे बताऊंगी। जामिया ने एक डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस एक्ट पे मदनपुर खादर में एक प्रोजेक्ट किया। तो मदनपुर खादर में एक जगह ऐसी है जहाँ पे रिक्शा वाले और जो पंचर बनाने वाले, इस तरह के लोग बहुत रहते थे। तो उनको ये होता है, जब हम डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस इस तरह के जो क्राइम पे अवेयरनेस फैलाते हैं तो विमेन पे ज्यादा कर देते हैं, उनको बता देते हैं, मगर जो एक्यूज होता है उसको नहीं बताते। यहाँ हमने यंग जनरेशन के उन बच्चों को लिया और उनको ट्रेन किया, उसके बाद वहीं के पुलिस स्टेशन से करके उनको एक कार्ड दिलाया कि किसी भी तरीके का कोई वायलेंस होता है, चाहे वो किसी की वाइफ के साथ, मदर के साथ या बेटी के साथ, तो ये लोग आके कंप्लेन करेंगे तो उनको रोका जाएगा। तो मेरा मानना ये है कि जब जैसे कह दिया जाता है चोर से कहो इस सामान की रखवाली करो, तो अगर जब तक हम यंग बॉयज को या मैं कहूँ और किसी तरह मेल फिगर्स को जब तक हम सेंसिटाइज नहीं करेंगे, खाली विमेन पे ही बात करते रहेंगे, तब तक ये सोशलाइजेशन नहीं होगा। आई थिंक सो। तो इन चीजों को सबसे पहले हमें समझना है, फिर हमें एक इन्वायरमेंट क्रिएट करना है अपने चारों तरफ कि लोग उन चीजों को सुने। इसी के साथ हम सेकंड एग्जाम्पल ये देते हैं, क्योंकि मैंने अपनी बात में भी कहा और गरिमा ने भी और एडवोकेट आशीष ने भी कहा कि लोग सुनते नहीं हैं इस बात को, डिस्कशन में नहीं आता। हम जब फैमिली में बैठेंगे तो पेरेंट्स पहले इन बातों को डिस्कस नहीं करते, वो बाहर जाके या सस्ते नॉवेल लेके या सस्ते डाइजेशन बुक्स लेके वो उन चीज नॉलेज लेना चाहते हैं। तो उस नॉलेज को अगर घर के लोग एक एनवायरनमेंट क्रिएट करके उन चीजों को डिस्कस करें, उस पर बात करें, तो ये प्रॉब्लम मुझे लगता है जल्दी सॉल्व होगी। जिस तरीके से मैं ये कहूंगी, अब तो 2 इयर्स से हमारे यहाँ कोई भी फील्ड वर्क का काम नहीं हो पा रहा है। सोशल वर्क में जामिया में कैंप लगता था हरियाणा में तो वहां मैं ही गई, तो मैंने बात करना हम लोगों ने शुरू किया रेप के ऊपर। तो एकदम से लोग खड़े हो गए और उन्होंने कहा कि हम बात नहीं करेंगे, हमारे यहाँ यंग सी लड़कियां खड़ी हुई हैं और लड़के खड़े हुए हैं, हम उन पे बात नहीं करेंगे, ऐसे ऐसे टॉपिक पे, मतलब वो रेप वर्ड ही नहीं सुनना चाह रहे थे। फिर मैंने वहां के कुछ जो थे, एक पंचायत में सरपंच जी थे और एक मौलाना थे और एक पंडित जी थे, उनके साथ, तीनों के साथ बैठ के मैंने डिस्कशन किया। हमने कहा मान लिए मैं आपकी बेटी हूँ और अगर मेरे साथ कुछ ऐसा हो जाता है कि आप तब भी बात करना पसंद नहीं करेंगे। तो उन्होंने बहुत, जब मैंने मतलब हाफ एन आवर हमारी मीटिंग अच्छे से चली, तो उन्होंने कहा हाँ बेटा क्यों नहीं, हम तो करना चाहिए और ये वो सारी बात, तो वो बातों में आए। तो उसके बाद हम लोग खड़े होके किसी बात पे डिस्कशन कर पाए कि रेप क्या चीज होती है, मैरिटल रेप क्या चीज होती। तो हमें सोसाइटी के उस तबके को बताना होगा जो अभी हमारे टच में नहीं है। और बहुत ही खूबसूरत बात यह है कि अगर हम इंस्टीट्यूशन में, एजुकेशन इंस्टीट्यूशन में इन चीज़ों को बढ़ावा दे रहे हैं, तो आप ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, एनजीओ इस लेवल पे जो काम कर रहे हैं, इस तरह का अवेयरनेस प्रोग्राम और कुछ डॉक्यूमेंट्स डिस्ट्रीब्यूट किए जाए, छोटे छोटे से पम्पलेट, जिसमें ये बताया जाए कि इस तरह की चीजें गलत है। क्राइम तो बात की बात है, जो हमारे लाइफ पे इम्पैक्ट डालती है उसका क्या असर होता है, वो खाली एक औरत के ही ऊपर नहीं इम्पैक्ट डालती है, उसके बच्चे के ऊपर, आने वाले फ्यूचर के जो एक लड़की होती है वो वही सोच डेवलप करती है लेके कि उसकी माँ के साथ क्या हुआ, तो उसकी लाइफ भी उस तरीके से आगे इन फ्यूचर में खराब होती। तो मेरा मानना यह है कि सोशलाइजेशन इज मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट। मतलब मैरिटल रेप के लिए या रेप के लिए या और भी जो वायलेंस के लिए, जो जेंडर वायलेंस होते हैं. थैंक यू.
Very good, Dr. Tarannum. Ashish, I come back to you. There is this IPC 375, 376, which covers rape and which has the penal action also when the rape is proved. Now, in this act, the problem is they say that it covers the marital rape also, in the sense if the girl is below the age of 15 and there is coercive sex with her, then it will be called marital rape. Then what about the women who are the girls who are 18 years, 17 years, 16 years, 20 years? What is the safety net for them when we talk about this particular IPC 375?
As of now, the current scenario, marital rape can only be seen as a rape which is legally permissible. That negates the element of consent for a woman. This section talks about the consent not being given by the woman, but particularly in the case of a marital rape, it negates the basic element of a consent of a woman. The relationship between the victim, therefore the relationship between the victim and the offender is immaterial, and focus should only be maintained on the presence of the consent in these cases. Like if we talk about the cases of, there are multiple cases which have been reported in the honorable courts, starting from the district courts till the apex court of our country. But in no case, sentence could be awarded to the husband. Reason being, there is no perfect law. So how can we approach the authorities? We can go to a crime against women cell first, that these things have been happening to us. We can make a complaint directly to the Chief Metropolitan Magistrate or the Metropolitan Magistrate, whosoever is empowered to deal with the Complaints of Domestic Violence Act. And we can enumerate that these kind of acts have been brutally done to us in a marital relationship. Along with that, we can also approach the National Human Rights Commission, because this thing pertains to a right of a person. So I wholeheartedly think that these three authorities would somewhere or the other help us in securing justice. But why these kind of things are happening, like Dr. Tarannum has said and Garima has said, when the shadow of patriarchy weighs so heavily on our belief system, it becomes all the more difficult for a woman to fight for their rights, man. Even those as fundamental as bodily autonomy of a woman. It is commonly assumed that women cannot be raped by family members. This assumption comes from the fact that we cannot fathom a wife being raped by her husband. So therefore, it is always supposed that these kind of relationships are based upon love and sentimental ties. But this does not negate the fact that these things are happening in our country from a long period of time. So therefore, whenever these kind of acts are being done, a woman should immediately take recourse of all these three authorities which are available with her. She should take a legal advice. There are district authorities like Delhi State Legal Services Authority, which is providing free legal aid to the persons who are coming to them. And for women, there is actually a free legal aid. She will be provided with a lawyer who will listen to her complaint, who will draft a petition on her behalf or a complaint on her behalf, and would file it in the court and then would pursue that complaint. So therefore, if any of these acts is being done to a woman, she should immediately take recourse, legal recourse, and she should actually go to the authorities. And there is no bar that a woman can never inform the police authorities in respect of these acts. She can inform the police authorities in respect of these acts, because let us not talk about only section 375 and 376. We should also give a light to section 377, which talks about a carnal intercourse against the human nature.
Yeah.
So there are cases which are reported. There are increasing number of cases which are reported under these sections. So if such kind of brutal act is being done to a woman and to her body and soul, she can definitely go to the police authorities and can report her matter. So if at all people think that if I go to a police station, there would be only male persons who will address to my complaint and they'll be appointed as an investigating officer, it's a myth right now. She can make a humble request in respect of the same, that she wants to disclose all the material facts to a woman investigating officer. So in respect of the same, a woman investigating officer would be appointed, to whom she can comfortably tell all the acts of inhuman nature that have been done to her. So they can be easily reported, and a report in respect of the same can be prepared.
True, true. So, Garima, Ashish has rightly pointed out that there are a lot of redressal mechanisms. It's not that redressal mechanisms are not there, but maybe they are inadequate. Inadequate in the sense they cannot deal with the what do you say, the emotional nature of this crime, right? Or they are very fragmented, and it's becomes maybe it's very difficult for a woman who has undergone this pain and agony to reach out to these redressal mechanisms. So do you think that the legislature now has to take some action and come up with a consolidated law which includes something as emotional as marital rape? That is criminalizing marital rape is what I'm talking about.
Ma'am, as Ashish sir and Tarannum ma'am have pointed out that the effects, whether it would be physical or psychological, they are so grave that it is very difficult for a woman to cope up with it. These are scars not only on the body but on the soul of the woman as well. And the trauma has a lasting effect. So the need of the hour is, the societal view is that the woman is considered as an object, and also this is the main hurdle which I believe is there why the legislature is not coming up with the law. So this, I think, coming up with the law to criminalize marital rape is the need of the hour, because it is not only against Article 14, that is right to equality, but it is also against the right to privacy as well as the right to human dignity. It violates all of these rights. Also, on the contrary, at one side we are saying that the age for a woman to get married should be 21 years. But on the other side, if a woman is more than 18 years, we are not penalizing it, because 375 only deals with wife if she is below the age of 18 years under Section 375. But there are countries which have come up with the law, which have criminalized marital rape, such as Germany, Italy, France, UK, US. In all these countries, it is a crime and it is an offense. And in countries like Denmark and Canada, even rape against men is also an offense, which includes spousal rape. So I think we as a society need to progress a little and need to realize that times have changed, and there are cases which are in which, like, there are genuine cases in which the woman is suffering a lot. And some might argue that these laws may be misused, and it is, since it is very easy for a wife to put allegations on her husband that he raped me, and it is very difficult for the husband to prove that he's innocent. But I believe there is no such law which can't be misused. Every law there are loopholes in every law, that people are able to find loopholes in every law. So thinking of it can be misused, it should not be a defense in such a case. What we need is better execution of these laws. We need to execute them better. And here comes the role of various organs and departments of the government. Like the police, they need to investigate it better. They need to, person who is approaching them is approaching them with a false and frivolous motive in mind, or whether it is a genuine case, and it can prevent the misuse at the very basic level. Then the media, which is the fourth pillar of the government, can contribute in raising awareness among various strata of the society, so that people feel confident, women feel confident, and come and raise their voice against it. Then judiciary should be conscious, and there are cases in which judges have said that it is right against human dignity, against privacy, and they are putting pressures in a way on the government that you should come up with the rights. Sakshi versus Union of India, etc. Yesterday also, the Delhi High Court, there were a bench of petitions which were pending, the hearing was going on in the Delhi High Court, and it was for criminalizing marital rape only. So people are coming forward to it. And I think we as advocates also should, we also feel responsible that we should we should support such women who are genuinely the victims of rape, rather than filing frivolous and false and frivolous cases, because if this is done, the whole essence of the law would be lost. So I think we as a society as a whole should work together so that this issue could be raised, and the issue of marital rape is criminalized.
No, I agree. There are loopholes in every law. I think it's a high time we should have a data on how many laws, how many cases, how many complaints misuse the loopholes in these laws.
Right.
The subject is such that it can just go on and on, because it's very close to our heart. And this is something where we actually need action. We have some law students also with us in this webinar. I would request the participants to come up with their questions. They can even write in the chat box if there are some questions, and do write whom the question is addressed to. And maybe we can make this discussion now more interactive and more engaging. You have all heard our views, so let us that we also hear from you. So any questions, any comments, any inputs from the participants? I think they're still they're still thinking what to ask and what issue to raise. Is there any question in the chat box? I don't think so, right? Yeah. So maybe we can end this discussion with a few minutes to each of the panelists to summarize their thoughts, to summarize their thinking, and summarize their perspective on the subject. And maybe that will form the ground for the next topic in the series of gender in violence. So let's begin with Dr. Tarannum. How would you like to sum up your perspective on this issue? We all know a lot has to be done. We all know how we can get rid of this menace which has been there, and as Garima says, it needs to be tackled by the youth of today, right? There is a lot of change which is occurring over the generations, and from maybe the position of subjugation, we need to talk about gender balance relationships, and these need to be a part of the marriage and family. Our generations are gone. The next generations, we have a lot of hope from coming generations. And yes, formal education does play a very important role in that. So I would request Dr. Tarannum to sum up her perspective.
थैंक यू सो मच डॉक्टर माला। और मैं मानती हूँ कि मैंने एडवोकेट आशीष और गरिमा की सो यंग और बहुत अच्छे से डिस्कशन रहा और हमने उनसे बहुत सी बातें सीखी। जैसे कि हम ये कह रहे हैं, आप भी कह रही हैं कि हमारी यंग जनरेशन, मगर हम उस 10% को कैसे माने जो 90% हमारे रूरल एरिया में रह रही है ना। और जैसे दिल्ली के कुछ ऐसे हिस्से हैं जहाँ पे आप जाएंगे तो ये देखेंगे कि लड़कियों को अभी हम लोग कुछ एक कोर्स चलाना चाह रहे थे मास मीडिया, तो लड़कियां सब एडिटिंग में आना चाह रही, कोई कैमरा नहीं उठाना चाह रहा। मतलब मुझे बहुत देख के हैरत हुई कि मतलब वो निकलने नहीं दे रहे लड़कियों को। तो में इस तरह का सोशलाइजेशन है कि हम लड़कियों को एक अलग से अपब्रिंगिंग करते हैं, उनको अलग से तैयार करते हैं और लड़कों को अलग से तैयार करते हैं। तो कैसे इन बातों का डिस्कशन होगा और कैसे उन चीजों को समझेंगे कि हम एक दूसरे का रिस्पेक्ट करना सीखें, एक दूसरे की बॉडी का रिस्पेक्ट करना सीखें, एक दूसरे का वर्क का रिस्पेक्ट करना सीखें। तो जब हम एक, चाहे वो लिविंग रिलेशंस हो चाहे मैरिज के रिलेशन हो, जब हम इसमें आते हैं तो एक दूसरे को रिस्पेक्ट के साथ अडॉप्ट करते हैं, एक तरह से एक दूसरे के साथ रहते हैं। बट मैं कुछ जो आप कहिए कि 25% या 20% लोग आप या हम अपने बच्चों से बैठ के डिस्कशन कर लेते हैं, मगर मैं जब देखती हूँ, जब आप तो मुझसे ज्यादा जाती होंगी फील्ड में, देखती हैं कि लेडीज या जेंट्स इस तरह के डिस्कशन बच्चों से नहीं करते हैं जो उन्हें करने चाहिए, जो उनके फ्यूचर के लिए बहुत जरूरी होते हैं, है ना। कि उनको एजुकेशन दी जाए, लिटरेसी कराया जाए, सेक्स एजुकेशन जो कि इतना इम्पोर्टेंट टूल है, जो हमारे यहाँ पब्लिक स्कूल्स में, गवर्नमेंट स्कूल में दी जा रही है, मगर आम पब्लिक तक ये बातें नहीं पहुंच रही। और जैसे गरिमा ने कहा कि मीडिया के जरिए भी हम एक अच्छा रोल प्ले कर सकते हैं कि छोटी छोटी डॉक्यूमेंट्रीज दिखाई जाए, जिससे कि वो देख के उन चीजों को समझ सकते हैं। बहुत सी चीजें बताने से ज्यादा देखने का असर करती हैं, तो वो इस तरह की डॉक्यूमेंट्रीज और इस तरह की फिल्में चलाई जाएं जो कि हमारे मतलब सोशल रिफॉर्म में हम लोग के लिए हेल्प करेंगी। और एक बहुत से ऐसे आइडियाज होते हैं जो हम उनके कनेक्ट हो जाते हैं, जब एक साथ हम एक दूसरे के साथ कनेक्ट हो जाते हैं, जिससे हमारे रिफॉर्म्स, सोशलाइजेशन पे बहुत इम्पैक्ट पड़ता है और हम बहुत अच्छे से चीजों को आगे बढ़ा सकते हैं। यहाँ मैं एक बात और भी कहना चाहूंगी कि जैसा मैंने यहाँ बात एक अपने एग्जाम्पल में कहा था, एक मौलाना साहब और पंडित जी और प्रधान का वो किया था। मैं इस बात को, मतलब रिलीजन को नहीं फॉलो करती हूँ, मगर मैं ये कहूंगी जहां इनकी जरूरत पड़े, क्योंकि इस सोसाइटी में हमारे अब भी इंडियन सोसाइटी में एक बड़ी अहमियत रखते हैं, इनको हम साथ लेके कि पहले इनको हम सेंसिटाइज करें और ये हमारी सोसाइटी के अंदर तक पहुंच जाते हैं तो हम इनके साथ चल के अंदर तक पहुंच सकते हैं। थैंक यू सो मच। थैंक यू।
बिल्कुल ठीक बोला आपने तरन्नुम जी। आशीष, would you like to add something to it?
Ma'am, a lot has already been said by Dr. Tarannum, and she has deeply covered this topic, and each one of us has contributed to the same. But one thing which I felt is missing in the complete discussion is the reason behind marital rape. What is the actual reason? Why do people do this? Why this thing is coming in our society and the cases are being reported to the honorable courts today? So we need to figure out the reason. She has given a very great example of Madanpur Khadar, and she has, along with the same, has given an example of Haryana as well. So we need to think about it, that the marginalized people of our society, though we are concentrating upon the young people today, the young audience, but what about the major part of the population which is marginalized, which is vagrant, which is displaced, which is in case a marital rape? Is a husband trying to, in a marital rape, it is a husband who's trying to assert his power and control over his wife. And what I personally think, men who lack sufficient resources to hold a dominant position in the society and want to be treated as respectfully, use physical force over their wives to get them to abide by them, cater to their ego, and give them a self-esteem of an upliftment. If the courts today aren't accepting the concept of marital rape, this in itself does not mean that they are not happening. It doesn't mean that it is not happening with the wives who are there at the houses. So therefore it is happening. It is happening at the root level. It is happening with every possible section of our society, be it the marginalized, be it the destitute, be it the young, be it the educated. So this thing has to be spread like a fire so that everybody should come to know about their rights, rights pertaining to their body, right pertaining to the basic fundamental rights which have been given to them by their birth, so that they can come up with the problems they are facing in their matrimonial houses, and the cases could be reported to the authorities at the outset. So, ma'am, I would like to conclude with this.
Yeah, great. Garima?
Ma'am, Tarannum ma'am and Ashish sir, they have summed it up very well, the issue. But as Tarannum ma'am said, that marital privacy is not an unconditional right. So yeah, it doesn't matter whether you are married or not, a rape is still a rape. But I think we as a society should not see women, we should accept people if a woman is coming up with such case, because the parents, the friends, they do not accept her, and therefore the woman does not have any place to go. So that I think should not happen. And we should be supportive of her. We should encourage her to stand up against him, to raise a voice against it, so that the trauma is ended. There is an end to the trauma. Rest, I think everything is being said by both of them.
So what we have tried through this discussion is to ponder over the issue of marital rape from the sociological and legal lens. I think times are changing, and where we used to talk about marriage and family as sacrosanct institutions, we need to relook at them. We need to relook at them with changing times. They are, as as being associated with a non-governmental organization. Yes, I work in the field. I meet children, I meet women, I meet the youth. I do see a lot of change. I see a lot of expectations from these people because they want to stay connected with the present times. And the present times are changing very fast. Mobile phone is an empowering tool. These days, every second person has a smartphone. They can access all kinds of videos, all kinds of discussions, and all kinds of events. So the perspectives are widening, the thought processes are opening, and now we want to start looking at social institutions with a fresh and a broader and wider perspective. It's time we look at these institutions, revisit these institutions, and have more open discussions on these institutions. Thank you very much for being with us today. We will continue our series on gender and violence in coming times. It would be very nice if you can share your perspective with us on this discussion, because that will open up the more of subject areas for us to take up, keeping the contemporary times in mind. So once again, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
We hope to stay
Thank you, ma'am.
connected with you all. Okay, bye-bye. Have a nice day.
Bye. Thank you. Same to you. Bye.
Thank you, ma'am. Same to you, ma'am.